Hello, my name is Marie Feldbaum-Corpy and I work for the Student Learning Unit. Today's short lecture is intended to help you in preparing for the confirmation of candidature proposal that you will need to do the beginning stages of your candidature. This short lecture will be divided into two main parts. The first part, we will spend a little time talking about why you need to do this, what is the purpose of this proposal. The second part will cover general characteristics that are true of all proposals, but we will make it specifically related to this particular document, the confirmation of candidature proposal. First of all, there are four main purposes in writing up your proposal. The first one is to help you. You need to establish clearly what you're going to cover in the next 3 years of your investigation. Who are the main authors and exactly what is your topic. The second main purpose is to demonstrate the viability of your research proposal. Are you the right person to be doing this proposal? Have you covered the right background? Do you need additional background before you continue? A third part of this proposal will be for you to convince yourself and your panel that you have enough evidence and you have found a topic that is in need of more research, and with this, that you have narrowed it so that you can complete it within the designated time for your thesis. When you have finished all of this, you will have a feeling of completeness, having accomplished the first major milestone in your career as working toward your doctorate. The proposal itself is presented 10 days before you have a meeting with all members of your panel. It's a very short proposal, between 2,000 to 10,000 words, and after your panel members have had a chance to read it, you present it orally to the group. This allows you to discuss together what you have proposed doing. You should consider the document to be a work in progress. During this meeting, you will talk to your panel members. They will ask you questions about this proposal and make recommendations regarding more work that you might need to do or giving you additional suggestions. The second main part of today's lecture is to talk about the intellectual context of your proposal. This is divided into two main parts. What exactly are you going to be looking at, and how will you go about investigating this topic? So, the what answers questions about the topic or the field. It includes literature or other field research that you've looked at, identifying a topic that you feel needs more work. From this, you then design research questions that guide your next 3 years of work. The how part is the methodological design that you've selected for your proposal. It includes the methods, the data, the analyses tools that you're going to use, and covers the scope of the research project. All proposals have key parts. These parts include a thesis title, an introduction, a review of literature. It specifies your research objectives. The next part discusses the methods that you're going to use. It may include a timeline, it may include a budget, and it may include a chapter or theme outline but all have references. What I've given you here are general characteristics, and they vary in terms of where you put these parts. The differences have to do with your own proposal and also your discipline. So, we said that all proposals have a title. This title is different from what is expected for a conference paper title. Conference paper title is intended to be catchy to get the audience's interest. That is not what happens in a thesis. It's primarily for your examiner to know exactly what your thesis is about when he picks up the thesis to examine it. So you need to be clear, you need to be informative to give details about the proposal, and to leave no questions in his mind after he reads the title. We said that all proposals have to have an introduction. This has two main parts. One, you establish the general territory of the topic that you're going to be working on. You narrow it so that it's a doable investigation within 3 years, so you give the scope of the proposal, and then you give a brief overview of what you're going to contain. Within this introduction, you may also put the problem statement. The problem statement is very close to a thesis statement that you're probably all familiar with from essays, where you give the position that you have on the topic you've selected to investigate. It gives the main focus of your investigation, it describes any variables and shows briefly how they're related. It should identify the gap that you're going to be addressing, and then key contributions of your research. Now, this part will take various shapes. We'll look at two other ways that this gets formulated. It depends on your document, how specific you want to be, and whether or not you want this right away in the introduction or later, in later parts, possibly in the literature review section. So then we said you have the intellectual context. This includes several main parts. In this part, you briefly describe what concepts you're going to be including and researching, any empirical approaches that others have used and that you intend to use. You review any literature related to your topic or themes related to the problem you've identified. This part should contain any theories that others have drawn upon and used to investigate your research problem, the methods that they've used to select and organize their investigations, and then from this you organize and analyze the materials that you're going to use for your project. Finally, you explain exactly how your study is related to the literature that you have just described in your document. Finally, the intellectual context in this initial part of the proposal identifies any sources that you use. Some proposals only use books or articles, but others look at archives, use statistics, look at fieldwork that's been done, how others have surveyed the topic, any other empirical data that may be relevant to your problem that others have used. But it must state explicitly the contribution that you think your thesis will make to advance knowledge in your field. Part of this initial section of the proposal may include the purpose, the aim, or the research questions that you're going to include. When I say that part of it, this part varies according to your discipline and your topic. Where you state the purpose, if you use an aim, if you use research themes or questions, that varies according to different disciplines and research topics. But what you must do is define these, either immediately in the first paragraph with the introduction, or in the middle of your survey, or at the end of the literature review. Sometimes this is done immediately before the method section, which we'll talk about next. But it must give the specific details of the investigation or your project. This goes beyond the problem statement, which I referred to earlier. This is a more specific list of what you're going to investigate. It may include, it's recommended that you say what you will not address. In other words, that you narrow the scope and make it clear why you have excluded certain things and do not wish to include them in your research. All proposals need to show clearly the research outcomes you expect from your thesis project. In order to do this, you need to identify clearly that you have a problem to solve or that you have resolved an issue in your field. You need to show that you have a plan of action to achieve these goals and that you can do it within a given time frame. In other words, that you've narrowed it so that it's possible to do a good job in a finite amount of time. This may be in the form of a general statement, or you may give a list of more specific aims, but you must clearly show what the outcomes are that you expect from your research. The research methods section follows this initial part of your proposal. As I said earlier, you may want to put your research questions at the beginning of this section and then show how those questions are best analyzed by the method that you have selected. Or you may put those at the end of this initial part with the literature review, showing that this is what you have found still needs to be done based on what you have just reviewed. However, wherever you place this, what it will achieve is showing that you have picked a certain method that you think will help you in answering these questions and is the best way to achieve the research objectives that you have identified. In doing this, you need to explain why this method is important. Why is this the best method to use? And you need to show why this method will help you achieve the objectives you've set out. Sometimes candidates mention problems that they anticipate with the method. It's possible that there may be complications in gathering data. If you anticipate this, it's good to put it in the proposal so that your panel knows that you have thought about this and that you have a potential way of solving it if problems come up, and especially that you show that regardless of any problems, you're sure you've picked the best method. The final section of the document includes 4 different parts. Sometimes you include a time plan. If you're using labs, you need to show that you've thought about sharing the lab with other people. It may include trips. If you're using interviews, have you figured out how you're going to space them and how much time it's going to take to do this? This isn't always required. It depends on your topic. If you're doing mathematical analyses, you may not have to worry about a time plan. So if you do have to include a time plan, it comes at the end of the document. Most proposals also include an outline of the topics or themes that you're going to be looking at, and this may be done in giving list of chapters where you show which chapters you expect will be included, how do you expect the thesis to be divided up, or it may just be a list of themes or topics you want to look at. This depends, especially if you're doing a qualitative thesis or a traditional quantitative thesis where it's very clear in the beginning exactly what the chapters will look like. Regardless, all proposals have to have a reference section showing what you have looked at. Some students have two parts to this, where they include the reference list, which is all items cited in the proposal, and a second list, which is the bibliography, things they've looked at, things they've read, who've helped shaped their proposal, but they haven't actually cited in the proposal. Regardless, you need a reference list. Some proposals also have appendices. The exact nature of the appendices is determined by the discipline that you're in. You should talk to your supervisor about this. So, what I've tried to show you is there are certain characteristics that all CoC proposals will have. There are variations in this, and it's determined by your discipline. The best way to find out what these variations are is to talk to your supervisors about possible samples they have from previous students. If they don't have any samples, talk to the departmental administrators or talk to other candidates who are currently past approval of the CoC, and maybe they will share their CoC with you. Regardless, you need to look at something specific to your discipline to know exactly what you need to include. After you've done all of this, you should be ready to meet with your panel, and I wish you success in making the final presentation.